Sergio is a very negative person. And he's really twisted this into something crazy. No, dude's just lie after lie after lie. And I'm like, this guy, Jesus Christ.
In 2022, you want to be contending for the title. In 4 to 5 years, you want to be able to say, I've won that title.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today I'm interviewing Patrick Moore, your 10th place finisher at the 2019 Mr Olympia, also 10th place at the 2020 Arnold Classic, which was just on recently. And we go over a whole range of topics, including his feud with Sergio Oliva Jr. And I think after this video, it's probably going to heat up a little bit because he addresses what Sergio said in my interview that I did with Sergio Oliva Jr. So if you want to go back and listen to that and listen to what Sergio had to say in my interview that I did with him, there's a part 1 and a part 2. Make sure you go back and listen to those. The links are in the description below. But he addresses basically what Sergio said about if his wife left him or not. And Sergio did say he was, supporting Patrick and all that sort of stuff through those times. And Patrick basically addresses all that and everything went on the Arnold Classic, plus much, much more, and his views on the whole situation and who's lying and who's not, because they both have differing opinions. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview. We go into a whole bunch of other stuff about Patrick as well. It's not just about that, so you get to learn a bit more about Patrick Moore and what he's going to do going forward, and if he thinks he can win the Mr Olympia and what his time frame is on that. So there's a whole bunch going on in this video. If you guys like this content and appreciate these interviews, make sure that you give me a thumbs up. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding. And guys, I really appreciate you sharing all my stuff out lately. It goes a long way to helping me out. And yeah, just so much love for you guys for doing all that. But anyway, let's get on with the video. Welcome back to Desktop Bodybuilding. Today I'm joined by a top 10 finisher in the 2019 Mr Olympia and also top 10 in the 2020 Arnold Classic. I'm pleased to welcome Patrick Moore to Desktop Bodybuilding. Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, brother. It's crazy. As good as I can be with all this craziness going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, your name has been out there a lot since that 2019 Mr Olympia, where you showed up, placed 10th, arguably could have been higher as well. Many people had you around 7th, 8th, and places like that, which for your first Olympia is incredible. And there was a lot of buzz going around your name, obviously coming into the 2020 Arnold Classic as well. So firstly, before we get into this, I want to find out how you actually got into bodybuilding, because you really popped up at that California Pro, and that's when a lot of people saw you for the first time, and you won that. Looked tremendous against what was a pretty decent lineup. You still had Tim Budesheim, you had other guys that looked, I thought, really, really good. Coming to that Olympia, placed 10th, and you were really the talk of the town because you brought that old school conditioning. But how did you get into it all? When did it start, and when did you start working with Chris Aceto and all that sort of stuff?
Man, bro, I was a former boxer, so I was always around the gym. I played basketball. Once I decided what I was going to do for a career path, the one thing that was pretty consistent was being in the gym. So I basically would go to your local gym. I was 24 Hour Fitness, LA Fitness, these different gyms, and I just trained. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to get bigger arms and a bigger chest, and so I just went in and did just whatever. And after a couple of years of doing that, I ended up running into a guy who's now one of my best friends. He actually pushed me into competing. And he told me, he said, man, you got a great physique. You could do this, you could be this, you could be that. And of course, I didn't even know what bodybuilding was. So I just was like, nah, man, I don't want to get on stage in my underwear. That was about the extent of the knowledge I had. And so anyway, long story short, he ultimately ended up convincing me to compete. And I did my first show 5-6 years ago. And I won that show. And then I went on to do another show. I didn't place first at that next show. And it was one of those deals where I liked the challenge of it, because I was always used to a sport where I could kind of go in and nail it the first time, and it's based off your skill level, and then that's that. This sport was so different because it was everyday life. It was much different than going in the ring and go spar, do your bag work, or much different than playing 21 or 5-on-5 in basketball. This was pretty much 24 hours a day, your effort, how you ate, how you slept, how you trained, the whole deal. So convinced me to keep going forward with it. I took a couple of losses. And 2016, I won the Texas State, which is here in Texas. That's, it's a big deal. Anytime you win a state show, it's cool. And so after that, I ended up going to the NPC USA's. And that was in 2017 when I turned pro. I had never worked with a coach. I didn't do cardio for that show. Oh, I did do cardio. I was doing 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week.
That's basically not doing cardio.
Oh man, it was crazy. But that goes to show the limit on the amount of knowledge I had. I was just, thinking I could just go on my genetics. And fortunately, I won that show. So I turned pro. That's when I met Chris, or I reached out and got in touch with Chris because he did a interview with Dave Palumbo. They were doing like the Heavy Muscle Radio, I think, or one of those shows. And he was talking about the weaknesses I had. And so that's when I decided I wanted to work with him because I wanted to get with someone who wasn't like, oh, you're good here, you're good there, and you're going to win. I needed someone to say, hey, this is why you won't win. Like, this is where you need to improve. This is where you could have been better. And so then me and Chris got together that first year in 2017, went on to the New York Pro in California State in 2019. So we did 13th at the New York Pro, which is my pro debut. And then 1 week later, I placed 8th at the California State. So after that, I took a year off. I didn't do any more shows because I knew I needed to grow. Being on pro stage was much different than the amateurs. So we came back and we set our sights on that California Pro. And, man, came in and got the first place. And, of course, was super excited about that. It was my first pro win. Obviously, a very big deal for myself qualifying for the Olympia. At that time, I had no plans to do the Olympia because I still felt like I wasn't at that level yet, like with the big boys. And so I ended up having talks with Jay Cutler and Sean Roden after the show, as well as Chris. And they were like, you just need to do it. You need to do the Olympia. If you go and you do it, if you get last, so what? I got last or 15th in my first, I think is what Jay said. He got 15th in his first Olympia. And so they were really encouraging to just jump in, man, like go and do it. And I definitely wasn't expecting the result that we got after the showing, going and I just wanted to have a good showing. I knew this is the top of the top, so I obviously wasn't going to win. I just wanted to look like I belonged on the stage. So, like you said, having that old school shape and conditioning really drew some attention. And it was just, the rest is kind of history, man. Now I'm trying to, live up to what my own expectations are.
Yep. And obviously you got Phil Heath in your corner as well. And I remember hearing in another interview that after the Olympia, everyone is going crazy about you because your conditioning was that old school conditioning, which I love, man. Like, I love it when guys bring really tight conditioning. Obviously you got the nice shape, pose well and all that sort of stuff. So, just by nature of what I like on stage, I was drawn to your physique and your showing because I was like, that's cool. We want to see that conditioning.
Yeah.
But I heard that Phil Heath actually said, he's like, yeah, you were good, but you can sort of be better. Like, I got that sort of vibe that he said that to you.
Yeah. And dude, those are the kind of people I have to have around me because I know I can be better. And as long as I'm not complacent, I'll continue to improve on a day by day, week by week basis because the biggest deal for me is having a really good off season. I know I can get in shape for a show. I can get in condition for a show, but I need to build the mass to do that. And so the people around me have never been misleading in the information they give me, whether it's Chris, whether it's Phil, anybody, everyone's like, yeah, you just need time. That's the one thing you can't rush. I'm not going to blow the physique I have trying to do a bunch of crazy stuff, chasing some muscle mass, because my strength right now is my shape and it is a conditioning. So I just have to take that time to build up over time, so with Phil being there, he's always telling me, you need to do this, you need to do that. No one's in my corner is saying like, oh, you're going to win it this year. You're going to win it next year. Oh, they're like, no, you're good. Yeah. And you can do it. You can do it, but you need time first. So, having guys with experience tell you that is really motivating. Because like I said, man, my own expectations are very high. I just have to live up to them in the end,
Yeah, for sure. And you've lived up to them so far, that's for sure. Now, coming into that Arnold Classic in 2020, obviously people have your name, in their mouths and they're talking about Patrick Moore. And you got some of those online sort of people that are probably getting a little bit too excited saying Patrick's going to beat Big Ramy and William Bonac and all these top guys and is going to take the Arnold Classic, which would be crazy next level if that was to happen in your,
Yeah, yeah,
first Arnold Classic. And then you have other people saying, oh, you and Sergio will be close, or they're saying whatever. So it was sort of like people were pretty high on you. Then there's other people coming back saying, hey, like put on the brakes a little bit because, Patrick, this is
yeah.
second, third year competing. So how do you feel your Arnold 2020 package came in? And what did you think of your placing as well? Do you think it was fair?
We, I feel like the placement was fair because I didn't nail it. I didn't. We weren't. We didn't have somewhere we missed the mark. I definitely wasn't full. I was on the flat side, where there would have been me pulling the water too hard. We just we didn't hit it on point, and that's okay, man, because it happens sometime. So going into it, I was hearing people saying, "Oh, he's gonna place this, he's gonna place that, he's gonna all these different things." Well, for me, it wasn't one of those deals about predicting where I was gonna place. I just wanted to beat what I did at the Olympia. That's all I cared about. Improving, having that same condition with a little more size, given I had some time to train, and I actually got the size, so I built up some, but we were, like I said, we missed the mark. So whether it was with the conditioning, with being full, having that pop. We just missed it a little bit, and we were good leading into the show, and just man, on the day of the show, we were just off slightly, and when that happens, it's like, oh crap, So I think the placing was fair because I wasn't on. With that being said, I wanted to be first, obviously, so it wasn't about beating any one person. Like you said, people were saying, "Oh, it's going to be close with you and Sergio. It's going to be this." He wasn't really something I was shooting for, because he hadn't placed like first at a show of that prestige, like an Arnold or Olympia or something like that. So I was like, shooting for the top, and whether that's going to happen or not, we're on stage and we're getting judged by judges, so they're going to make the call based on who they feel looks the best on that day, and that's all you can control. So for me, it was just showing up and looking the best that I could on that day was the only focus. So unfortunately, man, I didn't nail it, but I'm still getting started. I'm learning where I make mistakes at, where I can get better or fix this or correct this and that. So it's just a learning game. And like I said, man, the placing I think was fair. I at the Olympia, people had me higher, but once again, I didn't go into it with the mindset of, oh, I'm gonna place top five. I just wanted to look like I belonged on the stage. And for the Arnold, it was okay. Make sure you look better at the Olympia. Doesn't matter where you place, just make sure you beat that look. And
Yeah.
so that was my only mentality, man. So I wasn't disheartened at the placing or anything like that. I'm realistic, and it wasn't one of those deals where in my head I was like, oh, I'm going to beat everybody. I'm going to beat William. I'm going to beat Rami. These guys are vets. Like they're seasoned competitors, man. They have some real muscle. They've put in the time. They've grown, and I'm not going to go in there naive and thinking I'm going to beat some of the best guys in the world, because that lineup was potentially deeper than the one at the Olympia. So there was a lot of talent in that lineup, and much respect to all the guys, man. I just wanted to beat what I did last time.
Yeah, for sure. And with all the craziness that's going on right now in the world, like obviously we're having comps postponed and cancelled and all that sort of stuff. Did you have more comps planned to do straight after the Arnold, like Australia, and then you've got the St. Louis and all those shows? Were you planning on doing those?
Yeah, I had Australia. I was in line for the Arnold Australia, so I was super excited about that because that was kind of a chance for me to, I guess, redeem myself. The placing that I had to come in and in better condition, better shape at that show. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, so that was a big letdown, man. I just because I just knew I was going to be better, because once the Ohio happened, I'm like, okay, where do we go wrong? Okay, I think this is where we went wrong. So week after next, let's take this route. Let's try to do this, and let's see what the result is. So unfortunately, I didn't get that shot. And potentially before everything got really bad the way it is now, I was considering the California Pro or Puerto Rico Pro or the New York Pro, something that was, later in May. Obviously now all those shows have been moved. So now it's just kind of up in the air, man. If I'm going to do California, I think they moved it to June 27th. We don't even know if that show will happen yet. We're all just kind of playing it by ear. But I think a really good possibility for me is the Puerto Rico Pro. They moved it to August 27th, I believe.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, late August, I think that'll be something I can shoot for before I shut it down for the year, because I want to have at least one good showing before I call it quits, because you learn from every prep. I didn't learn a whole lot from the Arnold, Ohio peak week because I didn't really peak. So that's the only thing with that is I didn't get a chance to see if we had a better formula for that show that we could use going forward. So I have to go back to the drawing board, pick another show, and see what comes on the next one.
Yeah, potentially for the lineup in Puerto Rico too. This is probably the best thing that could happen because their comp is actually on the same weekend, I think, as another show in the US. And we saw last year, I think it was last year, that John De La Rosa, I think, went in there and won that in a lineup of only 5 or so guys. So I think they're probably going to get a better lineup if their contest does take place on obviously the 27th of August, which would be great to see because
Yeah,
I'd love to see if this thing clears up. We start to see a heap of comps in August and the Olympias in September. It's going to be a bunch of guys jumping in a bunch of shows, and who knows, it might have shows on 2 on the same weekend, and it'd make me obviously
yeah.
extremely busy with reporting, but it'd be great fun anyway to see that. So
Yeah, man, it'd be great to have a rematch with at least maybe a few of the guys from the Orioles to see how I stack up, because that's what it's about for me. It's competing with the best guys. I don't want to have a walkover victory. So the more for me, the deeper the lineup, the better, because it just makes me a better competitor, and when I can see how I actually stack up against the top guys.
yeah, and obviously with everything that's going on now, what does your day-to-day life look like? Because what do you do, I suppose, as a profession, before this whole thing happened? Are you still able to do it, and are you able to train at the moment?
Yeah, I just do personal training because now I'm more shift to online because I'm unable to see my clients. And every now and then, man, I'll do some cardio, I'll do some bag work, boxing and stuff, but nothing major because we're all at a standstill. So I there will be there'll be I can do some work and stuff at the home gym, but like I said, I'm not in a position where I have to do any crazy training right now because there's no shows. So hopefully, once things open up a little bit, or they announce some shows, then we'll get some of the gyms open down here, and then I can go and train on my normal routine, normal regimen.
Yeah, what part of Texas are you in?
So I'm in Houston.
Oh, cool, very nice. Yeah, for some reason I knew
Yeah,
he was in Houston or Dallas. I was just trying to figure out which one it was, but
yeah. Dallas,
one of my
they're hit a
friends.
little bit harder than we are.
Oh, are they? Yeah, because my friend actually lives in Dallas, and I record a podcast with him on here now weekly. So he's in Dallas and he's
Okay.
in lockdown. He's only got bands, so I think it's driving him a bit nuts at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's crazy. I went out and bought a bicycle because that way I can stay active, and it's really good training for man. Cycling, when you have that bike on high resistance and you hit a couple hills here and there, dude, that is it's hard work, man. It will train the hell out of your legs.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I just been doing that, man. Just kind of taking it easy, letting my body recover and rest. And the good thing about that is when it's time to get going again, my body's fresh, I'm rested, and I can kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's get into some of the news that I suppose a lot of people are sort of listening for. Now, obviously, we'll talk about the whole Sergio thing, but first we'll start with King Kamali saying that you should go to Classic and you're not an open pro bodybuilder, all that sort of stuff. And you basically did a rebuttal video. I think it was on your Instagram live,
Hmm.
IGTV, and you basically said like, I'd have to lose 31 pounds, like
Yeah.
as if that's going to happen. And on your frame, because you got the wide shoulders, and I think that adds a lot of weight to your physique as well. I mean, you just have to look stringy because you're a guy that looks like you can pack a lot of muscle. And I've said this about your physique before. You've got sort of those longer sort of limbs that you could probably add just
Yeah.
crazy amounts of muscle to and still keep your shape as well. So I think you're literally made for open. Like Classic doesn't even look like an option. So what do you have to
Yeah.
say about all that? And what was sort of the feedback after he said, you should go to Classic?
Well, he has his followers who are not very well educated on the sport. I'm guessing because they all backed up the same theory. I guess he had, which was crazy because he was the same guy that was saying, and after the Olympia, this guy Patrick Moore, he's gonna be this, he's gonna be that, nothing but positive things to say.
Oh, wow.
And then I have one bad showing, and he should go to Classic. He's not open. He's not. What's crazy, man, is you can't. I am lit on stage, at the Arnold I was 238. So, and that was being dialed down. I mean, if I would have pulled maybe a half a gallon of water, I still would have been 237. But the point is to be in shape, um, to be in that weight in shape. So if I go down to Classic, the cutoff for my height is 207. So I'm not going to lose 30 pounds of muscle
Yeah.
to go and compete in classic, you know. So it was very uneducated on his part. I don't even know what he was thinking. Some guys, like I said, man, you give them a microphone, they just say anything without any research or due diligence, because he could have easily reached out and sent a message and said, hey man, you ever think about doing classic? And I would have just told him, no, well, I mean, I can't, man. I'm pretty much well over the weight limit, you know, for my class. But he didn't. He just went on there like a lot of guys and just say a lot of stuff, and you know. But a lot of people now that they see photos that I'm releasing, they're like, "Oh, it's no way, it's no way," because you have to think, if you put me next to, and there's no not, dude. I have much respect for classic guys. There's a ton of talent, Breon, George Peterson, dude. All those guys that you got, Arash, they're all phenomenal athletes. I just can't make that weight. So it was funny when I posted that, everyone, oh, he's dogging classic. He's saying classic is easy. No, I said if I back down from what I'm doing, which is chasing the Olympia title, that would be easy for me to do. Oh, you know, I can't make that. I can't gain that much muscle. I can't get bigger. I'm just gonna, like you said, I'm gonna lose all this muscle. I'm just gonna get stringy, and then I'm gonna go down and compete at 200 pounds. I haven't been 200 pounds since I boxed. So, I mean, dude, that's just not going to happen. So, for him to put that out there, I had to speak on it because it's miseducation. Like, you're telling people the wrong information, you know? So, if you would have spent it different, you know, and said, oh man, it'd be great if he could make the weight, he'd be awesome in classic. But to say, oh, I'm not an open competitor, I mean, I'm 238 on stage, so I am an open competitor. There's nowhere around that. So a lot of people, man, they supported it and then of course you have the 10% that'll take and twist my words up and say whatever. But you know that's social media for you.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing that he said that actually drove me nuts is that he said Patrick should do a smaller showing, classic, get a win, and it'll feel so much better. I'm like, you got to win an open last year. Like,
Dude, that's what I don't understand. Like, you have to repeat that. It's like, did he repeat that back to himself? Patrick should do a smaller show and feel good about himself. Dude, no, I don't think anyone does this sport to feel good about themselves if you're not getting the result you want. I want to win the Olympia title. I want to compete with the best of the best in the open class. If I go and compete, if that was possible, in a smaller showing classic, dude, you know, I'm gonna feel not. That's not gonna be an accomplishment for me. You know, I'm gonna feel like I backed down. I was a failure. You know, that would be the reaction I would have to myself if I did something like that. So when he said that, I was like, man, I didn't know that's what bodybuilding was. I got into this sport because I thought it was challenging. And when you step up to the plate, you got to work and work and work until you meet the challenge and you're successful. Not run the other direction the minute you have a bad showing. I just couldn't understand that, man.
yeah, for sure. Now let's get on to the whole Sergio Oliva, because I had him on the podcast, or not the podcast, on the YouTube channel as well just recently. I've got part 2 obviously going up very soon. I put up a teaser for that, and basically he speaks on your relationship between you and Sergio. Also, he talks about Akeem Williams as well, and you guys had some things to say about Sergio based off what he said leading into that 2020 Arnold Classic, and he sort of alluded to that, you know, had Patrick had had it been all the guys been in the Olympia, he would have been last place like I was, sort of thing, which, you know, maybe wasn't the case, because maybe you should have placed a few spots higher, and if there's a few more guys, maybe you would have been about the same place, or 11th or 12th, you know, so you're still quite up there. Now, he came out and said a lot of stuff. He said that your wife left you. He said a whole bunch of stuff I can't even remember off the top of my head right now. When you watched this, because I reached out to you prior, just before I posted this up and said, hey, Patrick, just want to give you a heads up. I'm putting this video up. I just want to give you a right of reply if you want to come on. And you sort of said, maybe not. And then you saw people commenting. You watched the video and said, okay, yeah, let's talk about it or whatever.
Yeah.
Man, give me an insight. Did your wife leave you? What's going on? Because I feel like you have a bit to say about this.
Yeah, brother. When I saw that, it was funny because he took the stance that he was delivering exclusive information. He said, I've never talked about this before. Whatever he said, leading into saying that my wife left me. And I, like you said, I saw it. I received you giving me the opportunity to come on the show. And I was on the fence about it, but once I saw the interview, I'm like, okay, yeah, let me go ahead and reach out back to my guy and get on there and talk to him. So that's when I sent you the two pictures. So if you want to get a chance to post those up,
Yep.
my wife did not leave me. I It's crazy that he would say something like that because that's definitely not the case. Anyone who was at the Arnold, he actually saw my wife backstage with us at the Arnold. It was me, my wife, Hunter, Lee, some other people. We were all backstage. So I don't know why he would come on here and say that I told him my wife left me because that's not the case. And furthermore, a lot of that stuff he said, man, it's just lies. And it's crazy because, um, he said that, we were both screwed over by Labrada. Obviously, I was just with Labrada leading into the Arnold. They actually allowed me the opportunity. They cut my contract short to let me out of it so I could go and pursue a relationship with Yamamoto Nutrition, who is my new sponsor. And me and Lee are on great terms. We talk at least 2, 3 times a week. Me and Hunter train together. So when he said that we were both screwed over by Labrada, uh, I didn't understand that comment either because I was with them, and so that was neither here nor there. And he said that we're best friends. I'm lost on this. I'm wondering where this guy's coming from with that. Just because you know someone or you've met them a time or two, it does not make you their best friend. Me and Sergio, we do not talk all the time. We don't text all the time. I mean, look at Phil. I've been to Phil's house. I've trained with Phil. Phil was at my wedding. That's best friend stuff. Like
Yep.
Phil's my brother. That's very, very close relationship stuff, and we talk on a regular. Me and Sergio don't have 1/10 of that relationship. Um, so for him to go on and say all these things and say we're best friends, that's just not the case. And he what else did he say? I'm trying to remember all the things that he said on there. Um,
Yeah, well,
so he
he,
talked.
he he sort of went into like he obviously said your wife left you and he was supporting you through that almost. So he was saying that he was sending you memes and sending you things like saying we're going to do this and all that sort of stuff as well. So obviously if he is making that up, I don't want to jump on your side or his side or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm sort of staying impartial. But for him to say that your wife left you and then saying he was supporting you through that, and you're saying your wife didn't leave you at all, obviously there's lying going on. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I mean, dude, that's why I say, like, obviously, man, you can look at the pictures. I mean, she's very much there at the Arnold. And leading into the Arnold, me and Sergio talked maybe once or twice. So he wasn't supporting me through anything. Uh, I actually supported him. And see, if I was that type of person, I'd go ahead and put text messages out there. But I'm not that type of person. He was concerned about doing well at the show because of the lineup. In text, I literally had to tell Sergio, "Hey man, we can beat these guys." And if he's honest with you, he'll send you those texts. I said, "Hey man, we can beat these guys. Like we just have to work hard, and we have to show up." That's what I told him, and I was encouraging him because he was doubting his own ability through text. He was like, "Man, Raleigh's gonna place this. William and Rami, they're gonna be the top this and top." Dude, you can't have that mentality going into a show. So I actually encouraged him through those text messages, like, "Hey man, we can beat these guys." Because I'm being positive, I'm being motivated. I don't want to go into a prep thinking, "Oh man, the best I can do is eighth place because these guys are in it." No, you have to train hard for the spot that you want. So for him to say he was supporting me through, I am highly, highly confused. I really am, man. And this is as genuine and legit as I can be because I'm new here. A lot of people are just starting to get to know me. And another comment, he said that I commented back to his YouTube video because I wanted fans. Well, Sergio, dude, you know that I'm close with Phil. Pretty sure that Phil is a pretty big bodybuilding icon. So I had interaction with fans and fan engagement after the 2019 Olympia. So this was well before the so-called beef that me and him have or whatever. I mean, Sergio's not that big of a deal to me. I mean, honestly, he's not someone that I wake up every day and I'm like, I got to beat him. I want to beat him. No, I am just concerned on my own abilities. You know what I mean? So for him, man, he's really twisted this into something crazy. And I'm not trashing him. I just think emotionally he's not all there or whatever is going on. But dude, the stuff that he's saying is just so left field that I lose all respect for someone like that because he was talking about I could have picked up the phone and called him. Well, vice versa. I mean, he was at the Olympia, with me and my wife. He was there with after the show, and he was like, "Oh man, that's great. Good job. This, that, and the other." Well, if you didn't think I deserved that placing or whatever you thought because of the lineup or whatever, dude, you could have told me that, through text message. You could have said, man, you really lucked up on that, man, because the lineup wasn't that strong, but I'm happy for you or whatever. That's what I would have done. I would not have gone on an interview and said, if this person was there, Sergio would have got this place like me, no, I'm not going to discount your win or your victory, 10th place finish. You placed 10th, dude, in the lineup that was presented that year. I'm happy for you. And that would have been the end of that. So I feel like him trying to switch those words up and say that he wasn't, taking shots, well, that's like you're throwing shade. It really is. Because if you say that if you claimed you were my best friend, which that's what he keeps saying or whatever, I don't think I would tell my best friend, hey, man, you would have got last like me if such and such was in there. No, so it's just he's all over the place. And I mean, we didn't have a hell of a relationship before, and we definitely won't have one now because I have no interest in that, man. Someone who's like that and always, crying for attention or always creating a scenario that just isn't there, I can't. I'm a grown man. I can't deal with stuff like that. So, it's just crazy, man. When I saw that, I'm like, well, to summarize it all up, my wife didn't leave me. She's still here. Me and Labrada still have a great relationship. They gave me their blessing to go on. Like I don't have a beef with him. I mean, it's dead in the water. I mean, like I said, it would be a bigger deal if we were close, but we just aren't, man. And I hate that he feels like we are. Maybe I missed something, but what I do know is what I saw today in the interview, and it's just all lies. And it's unfortunate that he's putting that narrative out there when he has my number. Once again, if you felt like you wanted to say something that was my personal, or you felt was my personal business, wouldn't you tell your friend that? I mean, there's stuff he's told me. I still wouldn't I wouldn't say it to you because it was, that's just not what you do, man. So he did that, and he did it falsely. So my deal is, if you're going to tell news, just make sure it's the proper news, it's the correct information, because all you're doing is just making yourself look like a fool,
Yep. Now, he came out, and I don't want to quote Sergio exactly because I don't want to get it wrong, but I believe he said something along the lines of that you were clout chasing or you were chasing clout or something like that, and that's the reason why you replied to what he said initially on RX Muscle. Now, why do you think that, obviously, if he is making this up, and I'm to 100% believe you, why do you think he's making this up, all of this up so much, and making up such a large lie?
So, what I surmise from it, Sergio is a very negative person. And people that are really negative, they tend to want to drag other people down in the mud with them, because I don't know if it's because he sees how I'm positive with my fan base. Because before any of this, like I said, beef, I had like 200,000 followers on social media. So I have those followers organically because I enjoy going back and forth with the fans. So he curses out his fans. I've seen him. He's come onto my page, and I've literally seen him say a very derogatory comment to someone who mentioned him on my page. And, I don't have to chase clout. Like I said, well before any of the so-called beef, I was just hanging out with Phil, training with him for the Arnold Classic. So I don't think I need to chase clout, because I think I actually probably get more engagement than Sergio on my page, because dude, I post something, people comment, I comment back, and I do that without talking down on any other athlete. So it's like I said, man, I think he's just emotionally challenged, or he's seeing something that's not there, because I don't have to clout chase. I mean, I'm my own athlete. I'm my own person. I try to be positive. Even if I take a loss, I'm positive. My attitude is the same whether I win or lose. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So, I mean, he's just way left field with that, man. And I really can't tell you why, bro. Honestly.
Yep. You're obviously, you mentioned good friends with Phil Heath, and Phil. There's a lot of talk around Phil. Will he do the 2020 Olympia? Will he compete in the Olympia again? Will he compete at all again? Now, you probably know that you're going to get asked this in just about every interview because you are close with Phil. But do you think Phil's going to compete in 2020 or in the future at all, or do you think that he's sort of done and that he's got a real focus on business? Because I'm assuming the whole thing that's going on in the world right now is probably impacting his decision if he was thinking about competing in 2020 as well.
Physically, he's more than capable of competing. So it's just going to be one of those deals where if he wants to do it or not. And that's the last conversation. We actually talked about that when I visited him when I was up there in January. So we talked about it then, and I was pushing him. I'm like, come on, man, come back. You have to, because if you do, and then I can be up there, man, it'll be great. Because I started competing, because of him. When I saw him, the friend I told you about that was pushing me to compete, he said, look at this guy, Phil Heath. So that's when I first saw Phil. And so, I aspired to be that, the best in the world. And so I told him, man, how cool would that be? If you're competing, if it isn't your last show, either way, you're on stage, I get to be up there, man, it just didn't get any better than that, So my last interaction with him as far as that was, it's just if he wants to do it. But physically, he's more than capable of competing. Like when I saw him in person, I was like, damn, this is crazy. He was in really good shape. So it'll just be if he wants to, man. If he wants to put his body through a prep. I know then it kind of seemed like he was leaning more towards yes. He wanted to, and then he said he would decide around March. Of course, none of us expected all this to come along. So it's probably up in the air for him too. If he wants to compete or whatnot. But I'm sure if he does, he'll make it known once things settle down a little bit.
Yeah. So you want him on stage at the 2020 Olympia?
Hell yeah, yeah, man. And dude, that's the best of the best. It's because if this is his last show, and by some happenstance I'm able to get in a call out where he's at, it's like, well, I got to stand on the stage, with the 7-time champ, because every athlete doesn't get to do that, especially if you see an athlete, it's like, when Kobe played against Michael Jordan. Kobe was coming into the NBA, Michael was already established, so it's like, man, that's how you can really see how you measure up. You get to stand with the best of the best. So it would have just been cool, man, if that's something he decides to do. I mean, it definitely, for me, it'll definitely be special. And I think the fans will really love it too.
Yeah. Now, you've said you want to win the Mr. Olympia one day. Do you have a timeline on that at all? Like, do you think, okay, in 5 years, in 6 years, I want to win Mr. Olympia? Because in 5 to 6 years of competing, you've done some pretty amazing things. You've gone from being a guy competing on an amateur level, doing your first show, to being top 10 in the Mr. Olympia and winning a pro show. So do you have a timeline on when you want to win or be at least contending top 2, top 3 for the Mr. Olympia?
I would give it 2 years.
2 years, awesome.
And I'm measuring that based off. So I've been growing on an average of about 4 to 5 pounds, stage weight is what I've noticed when I've tracked from the time I started competing. So I figure I was just 238 on stage this time. So another 8 to 10 pounds puts me at 246, 248. That will make me, I think, very competitive for that title, to be in that top 2, top 3 mix. Because I haven't had a chance to really rest my body since the California Pro in 2019. So, because we started prep for that show around January of 2019, and I pretty much rode prep all the way through. So I did the California Pro, then we went right back into prep for the Olympia, and then we went right back into prep for the Arnold. So I haven't really had time to grow. So I figure with 2 years, if I possibly take a year off, like I said, depending on how all this stuff plays out now, that will be the first time I've had a real legitimate off season and a chance to actually grow and let my body recover. So I would say in 2 years, and then for sure, man, by 4 years, 5 years, I'm going to get that title.
Awesome. So in 2022, you want to be contending for the title, and 4 to 5 years, you want to be able to say, I've won that title.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Awesome, man. I love hearing that because...
That timeline,
so
I put that timeline there. I have to live up to it. So it's there. And so I put that pressure on myself. Like, it's not up in the air. It's not, I could do it in 5 or 6 years, or no, 2 years contention, 4 or 5 years winning a title.
Yep, I love that, man, because not a lot of guys are afraid to come out and say that because they're worried about what other guys will say back to them. Say, oh, you're not going to win it in that amount of time. But we've seen guys do crazy things. I mean, especially under the guidance of Chris Aceto, we saw Sean Roden go from placing, I think it was about fourth in the Flex Pro in, I think it was March in, I don't know what year it was, to later that year placing top 3 in the Olympia. So we've seen some crazy things happen, some crazy transformations, and I think you're on the right track, man, in terms of who you've got around you. Phil Heath, Chris Aceto. I mean, that's a pretty good combination as it is. One last question I want to ask you before we wrap it up. Now, obviously, yourself, Sergio, both coached by Chris, the technician Aceto. Does that cause any conflict? Is there any sort of is he the middleman sort of trying to mediate, or what's the go?
Let me tell you what's crazy about Chris, man, and anyone who knows him, he's all business. And there was one time I think I mentioned something to him about it, and he was like, yeah, but he immediately, the first thing that came out of his mouth, he was like, yeah, but Patrick, you just have to worry about yourself. And that was that. And I just told him, hey, man, your guy, he's tripping, man. He's saying crazy stuff. And Chris he's very good at saying, this is what it is. This is your job. I don't really care about any other extra stuff. So if he does talk about it or have an opinion on it, he never tells me. He's just like, no, just do your job. And, so it's for me, it's one of those deals where if I did say something to him, I'd say, hey, man, I got to try to be your guy this time. Or, so it's all good, man. It's all positive. Chris doesn't really play into any of the nonsense, which is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because when this first thing sort of came out and you guys were going a little bit back and forth, not too much, but I was like, they're both coached by Chris Aceto. They're both going to the Arnolds. Are they going to be in the same room? I was like, oh.
yeah, man. It's and it was crazy because even I remember at the Arnold, man, I think we were even walking, and if we would have been in that same position, dude, I would have spoke to him. That's the thing, man. When you're grown, dude, we're so far past the stages of internet beef. I've never had internet beef. That's not a thing to me. I'm from the old school. So if we have an issue and we can't sell it in any kind of way, hey man, we could throw on some gloves or something and we can go punch this out or whatever. But for me, going back and forth on the internet it's childish. So, if I would have been an opportunity or been in the same room with them or had a chance as well, I'd be like, hey man, good luck. And, that's all you really can say. It's like, we're grown men. So I noticed on social media, he was going back and forth and he was telling, Patrick's this. And, and people even started telling him like, man, dude, Patrick's not worried about you. You just need to worry about yourself. He's not even thinking about that. But he likes that attention, I think. I don't know, but for me, man, that's like yesterday's news. And I had forgot all about it, man, until someone said, hey, did you see the interview? And I was like, oh, here we go again. And then he's just on, and I was like, oh, well, maybe he's going to say something positive. No, dude, it's just lie after lie after lie. And I'm like, this guy, Jesus Christ. I'm scratching my head like, what's next? So those kind of people, man, I just have to leave in my rear view, man. I don't have much words for that,
Yeah, for sure. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on Desktop Bodybuilding. Now, do you want to plug any sponsors or anything like that before we wrap it up?
Oh, man, I appreciate you having me on, brother. My new sponsor, Yamamoto Nutrition, their products are amazing. And so I'm super excited about that relationship with them. We're obviously at a standstill right now. I can't really do any training content or all the stuff I would want to do for them. But I'm really excited about the relationship I have with them. So we'll see what happens, man, going forward. Like I said, if I get a chance to do the Yamamoto Nutrition, the Puerto Rico Pro, that'll be awesome. So we'll see how things stack up, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. If people like these interviews and appreciate the content, please give me a thumbs up on this video and let me know what you think in the comments about this interview with Patrick and everything he had to say as well. And what do you think his future holds in terms of the Olympia and his predictions on how he's going to place going forward. Let me know, and also subscribe, hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up for myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding, and follow Patrick Moore on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. The link is going to be in the description as well. So that's it for Patrick Moore and Xavier Wills. We are out.